For well-known reasons, this is an overhead setting and has nothing to do with reality. Nor is it pure immortal writing. It tells the story of Lin Wen's survival and shelter in an empire of terror. The empire is a mighty, vast, chaotic, internally strife, and factional country. Internal moral standards are very low, class oppression is a matter of course, and exploitation and cannibalism are normal phenomena, which can be compared to the international standards before World War I and World War II. The present, the past, and all the evils that have existed in the world are mixed here. Because they have existed for so long, they are even regarded as something that should have existed. Therefore, Lin Wen is a light in this terrifying red dust. He will pierce all these unreasonable dust mites and haze, and shatter all the old order within his range. Of course, he is not a saint, he just wants to become an immortal. In addition, because the world has not developed an atomic bomb, the war has never been interrupted, and the cloud of world-class terror war has never dissipated. The turmoil in the internal order of the empire was also related to the war. The empire is a semi-constitutional monarchy, the emperor is the head of state, but the power does not extend to his family. If the emperor is unable to preside over the situation, his power will be decentralized from the decentralization of the Supreme Council to a true constitutional monarchy. Until the next emperor succeeds. Most of the empire's technology is relatively backward, but biological and pharmaceutical technology is far ahead. Personal force has improved, which stems from the improvement of physical fitness and biotechnology, but it is still in the category of humans, and it is far from being able to ignore firearms. Imperial martial arts have coexisted with firearms, and both the use and countermeasures of firearms are considered a type of equipment technology. However, the empire has stricter gun control, and the scenery of American imperialism is still uncommon. Finally, let's talk about the update situation. Generally speaking, it is updated on time at 12 o'clock and 1800 hours every day, because the delay may be a few minutes. If there is an update, it will be notified in advance. It's not easy for a newcomer, please support me, Lao Chuan is here to thank you all. 13th day after crossing. Lin Wen had already calmed down from the initial excitement, not only calmed down, but even felt a deep despair. In this world, he still doesn't have everything he wants, and there is still only a life of struggling in the dust, and repeating the days where he can't see the end day after day. For Lin Wen, all life here is boring, meaningless, and dominated by instinct. He's had enough. Then there is only death. Lin Wen finally made up his mind. He looked around, everything was yellow-brown, this town was built on dirt, and the shape of dirt was everywhere, even the wind and the air. In this yellow-brown background, a cyan hatchet quietly leaned against a half-collapsed earth wall. It was so unusual that Lin Wen saw it at a glance. Okay, just use it. Lin Wen walked over, ready to pick up the hatchet and hack himself to death. But a bony hand grabbed it first. Lin Qing looked up and saw the old man sitting on the other side of the earthen wall. Father Su. Lin Wen opened his mouth and said, he knew this person, he was a lonely old man, the eldest son went out to wander, and there was no news for decades, the second son and the youngest daughter died. After his wife passed away a few years ago, he has been living alone, and his life is very difficult. Every few days, Lin Wen has work to do from his family, so I know him. Sell me the hatchet, I need it urgently. Father Su looked up at him, and there was a smile on his cloudy eyes and knife-like wrinkles. You can take it, Xiaolin, any time is fine. Lin Wen took out all the money on his body and handed it over. Father Su, the knife was requisitioned by the town, you take it. It doesn't take that much. As long as he saw Lin Wen, Father Su's eyes were soft. Lin Wen had decided to give up, put all the money in his hands, and made up a reason, there is also a part of the subsidies for poor families issued from above. Are there any? All. Hey, the county finally has a little conscience. Yes, who has no conscience? Lin Wen took the hatchet and said goodbye to Father Su. He had already seen a quiet and lonely place. He hacked himself to death there in a while. This pitiful journey through time is over. Maybe, if you die, you can cross again. Maybe, this time, I went to the world of immortal cultivation. Even if it is really dead, it is better than this desperate life. Lin Wen walked to a secluded place, raised the hatchet in his hand and pointed it at his neck, when a white fog suddenly appeared in front of him, and two pale golden words swiped across the white background. Good fate +1. The golden text disappeared in an instant, and then the left eye shone with golden light, turning into a line of text with a gold frame and gold pattern background. Good fate, 1. The black energy in the right eye rolled and turned into evil destiny, 0. The two lines of text are presented side by side on a white foggy background, one gold and one black, with sharp contrast. At the top is his name surrounded by immortal energy, Lin Wen. A very long part in the middle is written with various attributes such as aura, realm, supernatural power, magic, etc., but there is a pattern similar to a seal on the back. At the bottom are the 4 words that caused Lin Wen's cardiac arrest: reincarnated as a cultivator. Suicide can be reincarnated. 50 good fortune can be reincarnated. This is the message that naturally popped into Lin Wen's mind when he stared at these 4 words. The explosive ecstasy instantly drowned his brain. There was no doubt that this was what he dreamed of, his lifelong dream, and his unchanging long-cherished wish. Just a short while later, Lin Wen died on the spot, but at this extreme moment, the remaining reason caused another question to bubble up in his mind. What is the difference between suicide reincarnation and 50 good fate reincarnation? Just like asking a question and answering oneself, the answer emerges directly from the mind. Suicide and reincarnation become a person who does not read the world, comprehension +1, xingxing +1, chance 1, luck 2. Good fate reincarnates into a good person, root +1, understanding +1, chance +1, luck +1. Lin Wen's face immediately turned pale. As we all know, the most important thing in the world of immortal cultivation is luck, and the second most important thing is chance. There is no luck, no matter if your cultivation base is monstrous or full of magical treasures, whether you are arrogant or domineering or calm and low-key, the final outcome is that the boy who scatters wealth will send treasure to the real person. To make matters worse, there may be even worse things in the real world of immortality. Except that your life savings will be attributed to others, your disciples, relatives, and friends will all die, and your wife, daughter, and lover will be used as the harem of others. If the other party has a grudge against you, it may also stage a tomb dance, the 18x kind. This is absolutely intolerable. And there is no chance. It means that you can't enter the treasure mountain, you don't know the opposite thigh, you can't find the secret book when you fall off the cliff, and you have to work hard to break the ancient treasures, but they are touched by others, and they are clearly picked up. However, the mantle of the seniors found that they had already been looted. Although it is not fatal, this kind of suffocation will definitely become the biggest inner demon, which will greatly affect the practice. The most important thing is that it will reduce many incomparable opportunities, and the practice adventure will not only bring no surprises, but will add obstacles everywhere. This is the most terrifying thing, it will directly shake his original will to cultivate immortals. Therefore, suicide reincarnation is simply a pit in a pit, an epic giant pit, for the sake of a little insignificant attribute, but lacks the most important chance and luck. This is like picking sesame seeds and losing the earth. Lin Wen came back to his senses, only to feel that he was covered in cold sweat, and thought to himself, I'd better go to a quiet place to study, I must find the most appropriate way of reincarnation. This time, it must be a perfect start. He had already vaguely noticed that this information had already existed in his mind, sinking into the bottom of his memory like a subconscious mind. He only needed a switch, such as a strong question, to recall it. As for when this information was obtained, it doesn't matter, it may have been there long ago, perhaps at the beginning of time travel, or just now. As soon as he took a step, he tripped the hatchet under his feet. Lin Wen jumped all the way as if he had hit a landmine, and walked around the boss. Absolutely no accident. This was the only thought in Lin Wen's mind. I almost cut myself with this knife just now. After finally avoiding all possible dangers on the road, Lin Wen returned home. This is an earthen house of about 20 square meters, with a thatched roof and 4 walls, except for a bed and a table. The sunlight penetrates through the walls full of holes and the gaps in the thatch like a sharp arrow. In the past, Lin Wen would definitely have disliked such a shabby place. But now, Lin Wen only thinks that this environment is very good, which is very suitable for his identity as the strongest immortal cultivator, the future master of creation, and the son of destiny who steps on the immortal king and punches the emperor. Okay. I'm going to retreat and practice here. Lin Wen jumped onto the bed, posed in a meditation pose, closed his eyes, and when his thoughts moved, sure enough, the white mist appeared in front of him again. Lin Wen quickly scanned the above content. Yes, it is a relatively standard cultivation system. Although Lin Wen doesn't particularly like cultivation systems with systems, these are just trivial details. As long as he can cultivate immortals, anything can be done. Moreover, in practice, having a system will give him more protection, which will confirm his identity as the son of destiny and give him more confidence, which will help him stabilize his state of mind and speed up his cultivation. So, this is actually a good thing. The middle part of the white fog is a long list of attributes, and after the attributes is a seal-like pattern, which should mean that it has not been opened yet. That's right, he hasn't started to practice yet, so of course he doesn't have any spiritual chi in the realm of cultivation. Turning his eyes to the bottom of the white fog, those are the most exciting 4 words, the first content he wants to remember now. Let's start. The first question, what is everything about cultivating immortals? But after staring at the words reincarnation Xiaoxian for a long time, no information came out of his mind. Is my posture wrong? Lin Wen thought to himself. Then another question, what is the reincarnation method with the most luck? Still not working. Lin Wen thought about it for a while, and felt that his question was too broad and his spirit was not strong enough. To be like before, I should be very emotional and ask some very targeted questions, such as what I want to know the most right now: if I die unexpectedly, can I be reincarnated in the world of immortal cultivation? Almost immediately, Lin Wen remembered it. Accidental death becomes an unexpected person, perception +3, root bone 1 very tasteless. It's not a big deal, but it's also useless. Lin Wen calmed down a little bit. In the event of an unfortunate death, he wouldn't die just like that. But it is also unavoidable. Although it is only a matter of time before becoming an ancestor, a mediocre start will delay this time, and there will be many twists and turns in the process. Is there any reincarnation death method with all negative effects? No, my spirit is not strong enough, I have to rush and explode. Will you be reincarnated if you choke to death while eating? In this way, Lin Wen tossed until the next day, looking for ways to die overnight, and finally summed up the 2 best-known ways to die in reincarnation. Died to save the common people, the star of salvation, the reverse traveler is not like a dream, comprehension +3, luck +3, luck +3, get the characteristic of this life is not evil, the difficulty of practicing evil power is doubled. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Died due to faithfulness of duty. A person who keeps his duty, is it because of misfortune or good fortune? Root bone +1, spiritual sense +1, chance +2, luck +2. In addition, Lin Wen also excavated an important piece of information from his mind: reincarnation can have multiple causes of death at the same time. For example, he can be a savior and a duty bearer at the same time. It is conceivable that a person, such as Superman, whose duty is to save the common people, then he is also saving the common people while doing his duty. If he wants to die because of this, he must meet two conditions at the same time and get double happiness. Just looking at the rows of attributes, especially the huge amount of chance and luck, Lin Wen's saliva almost dripped. There is no doubt that this is the way to die that he will fight for in the future. Unless you can find two better ones. Although Lin Wen still wanted to continue, he couldn't take it any longer, and he burst out in a rush overnight, and even the strongest people were exhausted. Lin Wen fell on the bed, and when he closed his eyes, he turned his eyes upward and asked himself the last question. How do good and bad relationships come from, and what's the use? Very relaxed, Lin Wen answered himself directly. Benefiting the common people can gain good predestined relationship. The misfortune can bring evil fate to the common people. Good fate can improve aptitude, chance, and luck by a small amount, resist catastrophe, and reduce the damage of catastrophe. Evil fate can greatly improve aptitude, directly improve cultivation, make quick breakthroughs, or temporarily enhance combat ability. But lower your chances. Understood, good fate is the avenue to the sky, the super late stage. The bad fate is to quickly become a real treasurer for a boy who sells money. It's not clear how to choose? Lin Wen fell asleep. When Lin Wen woke up again, he had already thought about everything clearly, as if he had been thinking all the time. Undoubtedly, the current primary goal is to find a method of death that can achieve the cause of death of the Salvatore of the world and the person of responsibility at the same time, and then die. Of course, this kind of opportunity is definitely unavoidable, just like chance, it will come when it should come, so don't be in a hurry. The second goal is to brush up on good karma, and at the same time try to avoid getting bad karma. Regarding this, Lin Wen already had a bold idea. During the day, he gave Dad Su a few $100, and he got 1 point of kindness, and thus activated the system. Since giving money counts as a benefit to the common people, wouldn't he be able to make a fortune first if he just dissipates his family wealth? There should be no problem with this logic. You can try it first. Without further ado, Lin Wen did what he said. But after rummaging through the boxes for a long time, Lin Wen found that the poor ghost didn't have 100 yuan left in total, and the few hundred yuan he gave away was most of his belongings. Isn't it? Fortunately, he is still the mayor of this broken town. What to do? Go outside and do something with your clever hands empty-handed? No. Lin Wen immediately rejected this idea. If giving money is a blessing to the common people, stealing money will definitely be a disaster for the common people. Don't get the good karma, and the bad karma will rise a little first. He has a black eye on the world, but there is no way to make money quickly. While worried, the door was suddenly pushed open. A boxy young man rushed in and shouted, "Mayor Lin! If you don't do anything, we'll be hungry next week." This is his only subordinate, Xiao Li, who is in charge of urging life. Whenever there is any chores in the town, he will come to urge Lin Wen's life. And since Lin Wen confirmed that this world is a physical world, and there is no trace of immortality, he gave up his pick and quit. So Xiao Li has been in a daze these days, and he doesn't understand what happened to the hard-working, lovely, and capable Mayor Lin. Seeing that there are more and more chores in the town, I can only come every day to urge my life. This was also one of the driving forces behind Lin Wen's suicide. But now, when Lin Wen heard Xiao Li's words, his eyes suddenly lit up and he jumped up immediately. Go! Mayor Lin, if we fail the audit at the end of the month, we won't be, at. When Xiao Li was stunned, Lin Wen walked out in a hurry, let's go. What are you waiting for? Suddenly, 2 lines of clear tears welled up from Xiao Li's eyes. He wiped away his tears and ran towards Lin Wen. Whoa, great, Mayor Lin, you are finally back, our invincible Lin Li group has hope again, woo-hoo woo-woo-woo. Most of the chores in this town are repairing walls and making up roads, pulling cattle and sheep, looking for cats and dogs, and dealing with disputes. Speaking of the mayor, Lin Wenzhen didn't feel it at all, but rather like a long-term worker hired by the town. Because of this, Lin Wen used to reject these chores very much, but now, when Lin Wen saw them, it was like a pauper seeing gold and silver treasures, and the urge to suckle came out. What kind of chickens, ducks, cattle, and sheep are there? You think I'm looking at the whole set of Sherlock Holmes' Bao Qing Tian de Renja in vain? What disputes and contradictions are you right or wrong with me? Do you think that I have learned the dragon-slaying technique of the contemporary Xioma Xialai? What's the matter? The wall is down and the road is broken. Is there no genetic gene for you to think of me as an infrastructure maniac? Lin Wen, who has fully understood the reason for the battle, is like a contract worker who has joined the Red Army. Banana June has opened the door to a new world, and he is full of passion and motivation. It only took one day to get rid of all the chores accumulated over the past few days. It even got a lot of good reviews. The most important thing is that when he finished all the chores, Lin Wen once again witnessed with his own eyes that the golden text "Good Fate +1" crossed before his eyes. And the text in the gold frame and gold pattern background at the top of the system has become "Good Fate" too. At that moment, a huge wave of heat rushed from the tip of the spine to the top of the head, and the trembling feeling instantly circulated throughout the body. Cool. It's better than rushing 10,000 times. Lin Wen clenched his fists. The exhaustion of working all day was swept away, thinking to himself. It's not what I expected. The position of mayor is for me. I take advantage of my position to madly seek personal benefits for myself and benefit the people. Before I find the right time to realize my peerless death method, I will rush for good luck. This is simply fantastic. After thinking about this, Lin Wen just wanted to laugh wildly in the sky, and even Xiao Li, who was not pleasing to the eye no matter how he looked before, became more refined. Let the chores come a little harder. Burn my calories. Several days passed in this way. Lin Wen worked frantically during the day, looking for something to do when he had nothing to do, such as cutting grass and trees, chopping firewood, digging soil, catching fish and shrimp, and doing everything. At night, he dashed wildly to see if he could find a new and useful way to die. Even Xiao Li, who has always worked hard and never complained, admires him. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Mayor Lin is a role model for our generation. Not only is he more diligent than before, but his efficiency and quality are also higher and better than before. Those few days of low ebb must be the momentum before the breakthrough, the pain before the transformation, every time a man just those days of the month. However, although new passions have emerged, the actual results are very limited. First of all, they did not find a suitable reincarnation opportunity, nor did they find a new and valuable way to die. They only found a forbidden area that must not be touched when bullying the weak and bullying the good and committing violence. They were killed and died, becoming an incompetent rat. Root Bone 1, Divine Consciousness 3, Comprehension 3, Chance 3, Luck 3. The method of death that destroyed the Milky Way was immediately abolished because of this method of death reincarnation. Lin Wen wrote down the cause of death and marked it in red. As a motto, he always reminded himself not to make a single mistake into eternal hatred. There are 7 more such mottos, all of which are huge losses, but none of them are as conspicuous in color. Then there is the good karma. Lin Wen has accumulated 7 points of good karma in many days, and it takes almost 2 days to accumulate 1 point of good karma on average. It should be related to the size of the good cause. Lin Wen thought to himself. Some small troubles and small difficulties in life have to be dealt with many times before accumulating 1 point of kindness. Father Sue's 1 o'clock that time should have been accumulated by doing chores for the past few days. Only in a huge crisis of life and death, will a lot of good fate be given at one time. However, although this small town is extremely impoverished, there is no major disaster, and it is relatively peaceful on the whole. But, for Lin Wen, this is too inefficient. It would be nice if the people in the town were suffering every day. Lin Wen thought silently, but this kind of thing can't be done artificially. If you accidentally raise a little bad relationship, wouldn't it be a blood loss? The 26th day of crossing. In the evening, due to the continuous madness of wool, there was no major incident in the town, and the peace was much smoother. Lin Wen, who was busy all day and didn't save 1 point of good fortune, was a little dejected. After eating a meal of green vegetables and radishes that barely matched the atmosphere of cultivation, he recovered a little. At this time, I saw Xiao Li hurried over and informed him that there was an urgent meeting that he had to attend. Lin Wen didn't want to go. According to his previous life experience, meetings are all nonsense, and urgent meetings are urgent nonsense. If you have time to go to a meeting, why not just rush? Maybe you can find a useful new way to die? But after thinking about it, the environment in the town is getting worse and worse. If it continues like this, let alone 100 days, I am afraid that it will be less than 50 points of good fate even if it is not 1000 days. Embarrassed here? Obviously Xiaoxian is right in front of you, but he is forced to hang out in the physical world. So, it won't work like this. Changes must be made. Go to a meeting, broaden your horizons, maybe find another way? This is a good thing. After his thoughts were settled, Lin Wen and Xiao Li got into the car. This is the only motor vehicle in the whole town. It is rotten to the point of scum, and the engine is exposed. It needs to be cranked to start. This broken car has no shock absorption system at all. Lin Wen enjoyed the thrill of shaking the sky for more than an hour on the dark mountain road before reaching his destination. Donghe Town. Although it is still very broken and backward, this town is much stronger than Lin Wen's broken town, at least it has a hint of civilization. It has concrete pavements, bright street lamps, small buildings with courtyards, and even a barbecue food stall. Lin Wen finally felt a touch of kindness, as if he had come to a small town beyond line 1800 in his previous life. Xiao Li threw the car in a compound with his amazing driving skills that shamed the F1 driver in his previous life. When the two wheels were still cornering in midair, he jumped out of the car and shouted, "Come on Mayor Lin! We want to, you're late!" Lin Wen almost vomited, but he still managed to walk into the room. In a low-rise building and dim lights, in an atmosphere like an underground party meeting, Lin Wen finally saw other colleagues in this world. There were about a dozen people, all of them grey and dusty, with faces full of vicissitudes, like a group of old farmers. The only one standing was a little better. He was wearing an old formal suit, about 40 years old, and wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, like a social animal whose edges and corners had long been smoothed out. "Xiao Lin is here, sit down, the meeting will start soon," the man said. Lin Wen deliberately chose a corner to sit down with Xiao Li and asked in a low voice, "Who is he?" Xiao Li looked at him in surprise. "This is Zhao Anping, County Chief Zhao, you don't know him anymore." "Oh." Lin Wen nodded, it seemed that this was his superior officer. A few minutes later, the meeting officially started. The middle-aged social animals began to talk about flood control matters. Lin Wen couldn't understand it, and he couldn't understand the various terms and names. Sample. In the middle of a dream and half awake, I suddenly heard a sentence, "The mayor of each town must do a good job in the flood control work arranged by the headquarters of the empire, and strictly check the safety of each dam. 10,000 people's lives and property are safe. Whoever dares to take a step back will be dealt with by military law and flee." Like a lightning strike, his thoughts were suddenly triggered. Lin Wen jumped up instantly, and all the sleepiness disappeared. Going up the embankment and guarding the dam, isn't it just to protect the lives of the people of Lyman? Isn't that just fulfilling the duties of the mayor? If he died because of this, wouldn't the savior and duty-bearer become both? Before, I was still thinking about how to achieve the perfect death method and reincarnate as an immortal as soon as possible. Isn't this opportunity here? The flood was turbulent and the natural disaster blocked it. I tried my best to protect the embankment, but sometimes my manpower was poor. I was swept away by the flood while guarding the embankment and killed myself. Isn't this a very common and easy thing to happen? Ah ha 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 ha. Not only. There must be a good fate for guarding the embankment, and I can still brush a wave of good fate before I reincarnate. This is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone, not 3 birds with 1 stone. Ah ha 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 ha. It's as if someone gave me a pillow when I fell asleep. I really am the son of destiny. Lin Vengong wanted to look up to the sky and laugh, but he turned his eyes away from the corner of his eye. Seeing that everyone was turning their heads to look at him, Zhao Anping, Zhao County Chief, was even more displeased, and his face was full of displeasure that the leader's speech was interrupted by the little scoundrel. I'm a little carried away. It's not a world of immortal cultivation that is reckless and rejoices in favor and hatred. I have to restrain myself. This task must not be messed up. Lin Wen changed his face in an instant and shouted, Zhao County Chief is too right, it is about the lives and safety of the people, the vital interests of the people, and must not be careless, let alone run away. I will definitely be on the front line of this flood control, on the shore embankment. Patrol, stay up all night, and stop until death, resolutely eliminate all signs of harm that may endanger the people. Whoever wants to object, I will be the first to disagree. To tell the truth, this line is a bit awkward, and it doesn't get the essence, but in an emergency, it can only be played to this extent. And Lin Wen isn't very good at this, so it's good to be able to tell it. As soon as the words fell, the expressions of the people around Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com were different, only the county chief Zhao relaxed. Xiaolin is very enlightened this time, he said it well, he has the speech level of the governor's mansion. Remember to wait for me next time. Jump up when you're done. There was a good-natured laughter all around. Lin Wen knew that after passing the test, the effect should be all right. County Chief Zhao continued, Xiaolin is so conscious this time, that section of the embankment in Chenpai village will be handed over to you. As soon as the voice fell, the entire conference room was silent, except for the sound of County Chief Zhao sitting down and drinking tea. Although he didn't look at him, Lin Wen felt that Zhao County Chief's eyes were always on him. At this moment, no matter how stupid Lin Wen is, he knows that this section of the must be the most dangerous, and maybe the most important. It's really coming. Lin Wen's body trembled slightly, he couldn't believe it was true. County Chief Zhao took 2 sips of tea and put the teacup on the table. The soft thud could be heard in the entire conference room. He glanced at Lin Wen's trembling hand and said with a smile, Xiaolin, don't talk like that in the future. It's full, so everyone can't get down. Very good. Lin Wen shouted loudly and forcibly interrupted Zhao County Chief's words, for fear that he would lose the great opportunity that he finally bought. This is exactly what I have dreamed of, the opportunity to devote myself to the empire. The people have raised me up. People, the empire has nurtured me into talent, and this is my chance to repay the empire and the people. It is me who proves what I have done for 30 years. Learning talents, a chance to show your ambition. Please, Commander Zhao, please rest assured and give me this work. I will use my life's efforts to complete it. This work must be done by me, and no one else can do it. Lin Wenking's veins burst into anger, his fists clenched tightly, it looked as if the county magistrate Zhao would throw his fists and beat the officer if he didn't let him go. In the end, Lin Wen got his wish, got the task of guarding the embankment of Chenpai village, and went back happily. County Chief Zhao also deliberately returned the 12 staff members who had been seconded from him earlier, but Lin Wen was indifferent to this. After the flood control meeting, the chiefs of the villages and towns had all left, and only Zhao Anping, the county magistrate of Chongshan County, and his secretary Xiaozhang were left in the conference room. Under the dim light, County Chief Zhao has been drinking tea silently, without speaking, the meeting room is quiet. After a long time, the secretary Xiaozhang couldn't help but say, Chief, it's getting late, it's time to go back. County Chief Zhao nodded, but did not leave. After a while, he put down the teacup and said slowly, Xiaozhang, do you still remember how Lin Wen became the mayor of Changle Town? Xiaozhang thought for a while and said, I remember that Xiaolin's father died heroically in a desperate fight with the traffickers to rescue the kidnapped children. He was later rated as a first-class hero. His mother drove a barge to rescue the trapped children. When she was in the flood, she was swept away by the big waves. After the statistics, she alone saved more than 1,200 lives and was rated as a first-class woman. Later, the empire launched a call to remember heroes. According to the governor's office, Lin Wen was descendants of imperial heroes, directly promoted from town clerk to mayor. Jumped 4 levels in a row. County Chief Zhao stared at the teacup as if he was wondering, well, that was 3 years ago. I remember that Xiaolin was too young at that time, and it caused a lot of controversy. Xiaozhang nodded, yeah, but the authority of the governor's palace is someone else's turn? Haha. County Chief Zhao ignored Xiaozhang's teasing and continued, this work has been 3 years. Although Xiaolin has no talent for being an official, he has always been diligent and never bent the law for personal gain. It is said that he has been more diligent recently, and everyone in Changle Town has full of praise. Xiaozhang bent down and said in a low voice, Chief, what are you trying to say? Zhao Anping said lightly, do you think Xiaolin has noticed this round of personnel planning? Xiaozhang smiled and said, it's impossible. The drafted documents are still in your safe. No one knows about it except you and a few people in the county hall. Zhao Anping sneered, but did not go on, and instead asked, what do you mean by saying that Xiaolin is so active in defending the most dangerous areas? It's not that he wants to make money. Xiaozhang yawned, don't look at what he said beautifully, at most he just tinkers and does pre-work. If the flood really comes, he will never go to the embankment. Zhao Anping didn't speak anymore. He sat quietly in the dim light for a while, then got up and said, let's go. That's great, I can finally go back. Xiaozhang immediately smiled, picked up his briefcase, and rushed out in one step. Zhao Anping looked back at where Lin Wen was sitting, and left silently. After Lin Wen returned to town, he read the flood control materials he brought back that night. The next day, I took people directly to the embankment. Chenpai village is not far from Changle town, and the embankment is only a few hundred meters away from Chenpai village. Lin Wen walked over with 10 clerks who had just been transferred back, and he didn't want to sit in the broken car. There are also 2 people left for Xiao Li to sit in the rear. In fact, if it weren't for the lack of skills in avatars, Lin Wen would have done everything by himself that he didn't want. As soon as you get on the embankment, you can see the rolling river water coming from the sky, the waves are surging, the water waves are terrifying, the river surface is at least 2,000 meters wide, and the horizon is endless. Intimidating. People are so small here, like an ant next to a giant beast. The only thing that resisted such a powerful current was an earthen embankment that had been in disrepair for a long time. The embankment was overflowing with water, which proved that there were dark holes under the water, several places had collapsed, and the river water had invaded the foundation of the embankment. It is completely opposite to the flood control information that the embankment is firm, carefully poured, and will last forever. The 10 clerks accompanying him were all pale and trembling. Lin Wen's heart was overjoyed, he just had an excuse, he waved his hand and said, the embankment is dangerous, you all go down, prepare the earthwork, tie it with a woven bag, prepare some bamboo cages full of stones and reinforcement tools. Put them under the embankment, I will pick them up myself, and you don't need to take care of the rest. The 10 clerks looked at each other, and one of them murmured, Mayor Lin, this is not good. Needless to say, Lin Wen sternly said, if the mayor does not do dangerous things, who will do it? The mayor's salary is paid for nothing? What is the power of the mayor? You can only chew on the soil, why? When encountering major events, difficulties, and hardships, the mayor does not charge forward and sacrifices himself for righteousness. What is the use of this mayor? Blessing. Speaking of which, everyone didn't want to stay on the embankment for a moment, and the fear of the crashing waves made them flee as if they were off the embankment. Only Lin Wen was left alone in the twilight of the sky. In the roar of the raging waves, he opened his arms and laughed loudly, "I'm coming. Immortals, gods, tremble." Perhaps out of inexplicable gratitude, 10 people transported more than 200 bags of earthwork in one day, more than 50 bamboo cages full of stones, as well as more than 20 anchoring piles and a lot of tools. And Mayor Lin didn't go down the embankment all day. He carried the earthwork on his back and held a shovel tool to reinforce the embankment. This section of the embankment in Chenpai village is more than 200 meters long. It is reasonable to say that it is difficult to complete the repair and reinforcement with the workload of one person, but in the evening they dare not say this because Mayor Lin has carried more than 100 bags on his back. As the earth went up, he took a shovel in each hand, and like a mountaineer, he walked quickly on the slippery and muddy embankment, as if carrying a bag of cotton on his back, and transported a bag of earth from under the embankment in just a moment to the embankment. At this rate, we might be able to complete the repair work before the flood season. That's fine too. A clerk couldn't believe his eyes. Is this something a human can do? Is this man made of iron? Should we go up and help him? A small voice said. I'm going to you. I can't stand the big river when I see it, it's like a monster that chooses people to eat. How could such a thing happen before? Don't talk about it. This is Mayor Lin's order. If we don't carry the earthwork, will Mayor Lin go to the village to dig soil and carry it over by himself? Yes, this is the work arranged by Mayor Lin. We must obey the arrangement and not be lazy. A little more transport. Let's go. By 9 o'clock in the evening, the dark clouds were rolling in, and it soon started to rain heavily. It was too difficult to transport the earthwork in the rain, so the 10 people decided to go back to rest first. Before leaving, he looked back and saw that the embankment was as dark as ink, and he could not see anything. He said to himself, Mayor Lin has already gone back. A flash of lightning flashed across the river, illuminating the surface of the river. The water was rolling like crazy, making people wonder if the paper-thin levee in front of the 2,000 meter wide river could block this terrifying force. And above the embankment, in the rainstorm, under the electric light, there is clearly a figure, carrying something on his back, walking towards the embankment. The lightning flashed away, and everything returned to darkness. Huge fear flooded into his heart, and the man fell to the ground and exclaimed, the dike, there is someone on it. Everyone turned around and said, what did you say, kid? You're blind, there's a ghost in the pitch black. Hurry up and take a hot bath, you're exhausted. The man was still in shock and wondered if he was dazzled. It was absolutely impossible for Mayor Lin to be still on the embankment at this time. Even if he was Superman, he had to light a lamp, right? Otherwise, how do you work in this pitch-black piece? Although reason kept denying it, the scene illuminated by the electric light was always engraved in my mind. Contrary to what they thought, Lin Wen was still on the embankment, and he didn't feel the slightest bit of fatigue and hardship. He faced the terrifying might of nature in the storm, and he didn't have any timidity or fear. Instead, it made him feel as if he had come to the world of immortality ahead of time. That kind of excitement and trembling is completely incomprehensible to others, making Lin Wen completely intoxicated. Of course, this is not a spiritual victory. In the first few hours, Lin Wen was really tired and vomited blood. The road on the embankment was full of mud. It was soft to step in, and tired to pull it out. It was wet and slippery. Mountain-like. Without the support of belief, he would have been lying down long ago. It took more than half an hour for the first bag of earthwork to go up the embankment, and another half an hour to find the dark hole. Fortunately, Lin Wen's brain was enough, and he remembered the method of finding and blocking the dark hole in the flood control information. In order to prevent it from being washed away, Lin Wen specially found a location with slow water flow. This dark hole is also very small, and it was filled with a bag of earthwork, so it should only be a small breach. After Lin Wen reinforced it with a shovel, he instantly gained 1 point of kindness. Lin Wen was startled all of a sudden. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. In the past, he worked hard all day and couldn't get 1 point of good fortune, but after more than an hour of hard work, he was paid at 1 point. Although he had long guessed that repairing the levee was a great merit, he should have obtained a lot of good fortune, but he didn't expect that there would be so many. Calm down. Calm down. It doesn't have to be so many. I haven't been able to gain good karma for a long time before. Maybe it's just a little bit short. How about making up for it now? The verification method is also very simple, he just has to try again. Although there is a strong power bonus, but limited by physical conditions, Lin Wen still spent more than 30 minutes to carry a bag of earthwork on his back. It took another nearly an hour to find a particularly small dark hole, and after plugging it up, it was 1 point of good fortune in an instant. Fuck. Linvington beat his chest, regretting that he didn't discover this way to get rich earlier, and wasted a lot of time in vain. Just as he was about to seize the time to make persistent efforts, he turned around but fell on the embankment. Only then did Lin Wen realize that his entire shoulder was numb, his arms were shaking uncontrollably, his legs were like cotton, and he couldn't use his strength. Huge pain ran through his body. No, how can this work? The good fate was close in front of him, but he couldn't. Lin Wen was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Get up, this broken leg, get up for labor and capital. Just as he was in a hurry to get angry, a white fog flashed before his eyes, and the immortal cultivation panel came out again. The biggest change from the previous one was that the number after the word for his golden light of good fate became 10. This is the 10 points of kindness that Lin Wen obtained after many days of accumulation and hard work. What am I looking at this time? What am I thinking? The words stopped abruptly, because Lin Wen suddenly discovered that the seal pattern behind the column of spell had disappeared. Well, what does this mean? Lin Wen thought of a possibility. His heart suddenly jumped wildly, his scalp tingled, his eyes lightly clicked on the column of spell, the thin column opened up instantly, and countless spells appeared in front of him. Lin Wen glanced at various spells such as soul chasing, summoning moon, decomposition, fixing, shifting stars and fighting, and most of them were grey. Or black, or simply don't even have a name, only the word crippled is left. The more you scroll down, the more spells there are. When you reach the spells marked with Yuan Shen, they are all black, and more than half of them are incomplete. And in the true immortal period, except for the one named Quiet Divine Light and Resurrection, the others are all incomplete. Scrolling down again, he saw a line of small characters that were about to disappear. Just as Lin Wen was about to take a closer look, he suddenly fell into a misty grey fog. When he regained his senses, Lin Wen returned to the top of the spell column, and below it was a row of spells marked with the Qi training period. Many of these are white or green. What does this mean? Lin Wen's heart skipped a beat. Can I use these white or green Qi spells here? But it says how much spiritual Qi is required on the back of the spell, and I don't have any at all. The Qi refining period is the initial stage of all cultivation of immortals, and it is the first step for practitioners to set foot on immortality and challenge immortals. The cultivators of this period were only stronger than ordinary mortals, and it was not too surprising that mortals could use the spells of this period. But the problem is, not only does he have no spiritual energy, but there is no spiritual energy in this world. Then how do I cast it? The next moment, Lin Wen gave the answer himself. The power of the primordial spirit can replace the spiritual energy. Is this still possible? Lin Wen's heart moved. The power of the Yuan Shen? Do I have the power of the Yuan Shen? I haven't reached the Yuan Shen stage yet. All intelligent beings have primordial spirits, and the stronger the spirit and will, the stronger the primordial spirits. Even if you haven't started to practice yet? Yuan Shen hasn't practiced yet. Lin Wen then asked, but unfortunately there was no answer this time. Well, Chang's passion has run out. Before the outbreak re-emerges, it is difficult to have a response other than the answer that is about to come out. Lin Wen, who has been rushing for a month, is very clear about this. Then the only thing to do is to try first. Lin Wen thought to himself. He began to study the spells in the Kyrfening period carefully, and found that every spell with a name had 3 small words can be practiced behind it, but it was all bleak now, obviously indicating that he could not learn any spell here. In addition to those 3 words, there are 2 small words used behind each green or white spell. When he looked up, his consciousness clearly told him that this spell would consume 15% of his primordial energy. This is a certain part of the memory floating up automatically. After thinking for a while, Lin Wen tried to ask again, then how much primordial spirit power do I have now? 55%. What is the power of the primordial spirit used for? Control, transform, use Reiki. Lin Wen instantly understood that in the normal world of immortal cultivation, using the spiritual energy is much more cost-effective than using the primordial spirit directly. With my current conditions, how can the power of the primordial spirit be restored? Sleep. Lin Wen choked for a moment. What he thought he wanted to eat was Ganodermalocidum. If you say that, it can be used. There will be no long-term side effects, and it will not affect my future access to the avenue. Lin Wen thought about it in his heart, and carefully looked at the spells he could use, and finally chose the power of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. The white Kyrfening spell consumes 15% of the power of the primordial spirit, and gains the power of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. Calculated in this world, it lasts for 16 hours. Use. Nothing has changed. Have you used it? Why don't you even have a special effect? What the hell? Lin Wen came to the ground and was about to stand up hard, but he jumped 3 meters high, lost his balance in midair, and almost fell into a dog's shit. Lin Wen looked at his hand in disbelief. I'm so strong. With 5 fingers clenched into a fist, 9 cows and 2 tigers seemed to roar in the blood. Turning his head to look at the surging river, the dilapidated embankment, an air of heroism arises spontaneously. Ha ha ha! My life is up to me. My life, Lin Wen, doesn't depend on cheating. After speaking, he flew down the embankment, picked up the woven bag full of earthwork, and left. Ha ha ha! Really, as light as a feather. I can resist 100 bags. However, due to his physical disadvantage, he can only resist 1 bag. Due to the heavy earthwork, the woven bag cannot be lifted by grasping it, and the woven bag will be torn if it cannot withstand it. Moreover, although his strength has greatly increased, because he has not adapted to this strength, his balance and body coordination have deteriorated, and he often floats or falls while walking. Lin Wen was very distressed about this, so he had to hold a shovel in each hand as a walking stick for climbers to keep his balance. After getting used to it initially, Lin Wen's efficiency improved 100-fold, and good fortune came rushing like a surging river. Lin Wen has never felt so refreshed. Every time he plugs a defect, a dark hole, or a rupture, it's like eating a big mouthful of honey. At night, when it got dark, Lin Wen could no longer see the road, but he was on his way, so he could stop. Without saying a word, Lin Wen immediately started looking for spells, and soon found a suitable one. Clear without eyes, the green Kyrfening spell consumes only 10% of the power of the primordial spirit. It can see things in the dark and see through disguise. In this world time, it lasts 16 hours. Lin Wen didn't study it carefully, and immediately used it. Sure enough, the world emerged from the darkness, and it was even more clear than in the daytime. Lin Wen laughed loudly and continued to work hard. The torrential rain started to fall at around 9 p.m., but Lin Wen was not afraid at all, and he was hard at work in the torrential rain. He now fills underwater dark holes faster and more accurately than during the day, because eyeless and bright provides precise vision, allowing him to see the underwater dark holes directly without the interference of dirty water and floating objects. Specific situation. He worked until 3 o'clock in the morning when his strength began to dissipate, and the feeling of exhaustion surged up from his limbs, but Lin Wen's spirit was still burning like fire, and he didn't see any fatigue. During the whole day, he reinforced and repaired the 21-meter-long embankment, filled in 3 ultra-small dark holes, 2 small dark holes, 3 medium-sized dark holes, 2 defects and 2 small breaches. 24 points of good fortune. Among them, the ultra-small dark hole is simply a gift of good fortune. 1 bag is 1 point, and it is so cool. Small dark holes need more than 10 bags to fill, but only 12 points are given. Medium-sized dark holes need at least 30 bags, and gabions are also required. So it is still the most cost-effective ultra-small dark hole, but unfortunately there are not many, and it is difficult to find. Even so, revenue has exploded today. You must know that Lin Wen started activating the system and started to cultivate good fate. Until yesterday, he had worked for at least 12 hours a day for 13 days, and there were only 8 o'clock in total. I got 24 points in one day today, which is 3 times the total of the previous 13 days. It is simply a great harvest. And this cash cow can go on and on. Lin Wen was overjoyed and continued to work like this until the flood season. When the flood came, he would sacrifice his life for justice, and successfully win the Star of Salvation and the person who is responsible. Perfect. That's it, my journey of cultivating immortals. Lin Wen found a slightly drier place, lay down on the spot, and prepared to rest. Although I really want to continue to fight again, my primordial spirit needs to recover, otherwise it will be misfired after 2 days. And he also wants to see how much primordial spirit can be recovered after a sleep, which is related to his future work arrangements. Lin Wen was still in good spirits just now, but fell into a deep sleep in an instant. She slept very well this night, and when she opened her eyes again, it was already bright. Lin Wen turned over and felt indescribable soreness in his limbs, but his mental state was good. His primordial spirit had recovered from 30% yesterday to 40%. Lin Wen's heart sank slightly, and he only recovered 10% from such a good sleep, which means that even if he doesn't use blind eyes, he can't afford the daily consumption of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. There must be gaps. After doing some mental arithmetic, you read www.youcanshu.com. Lin Wen initially decided to work for 3 days and take 1 day off. If he can recover to 20% on the day of rest, he will work overtime. I only work during the day. When the sky is bright, I have to start the work, and when it is dark, I can't see the end at all. If you can't make up 16 hours, then turn on the lights and fight at night. Clear without eyes. Although it is easy to use and cheap, his primordial spirit is not strong enough, so he must reluctantly give up his love. Looking at the sun, Lin Wen thought to himself, today is too late, we have to turn on the lights and fight at night. I'll ask them to bring some flashlights, preferably miners' hats with lights, and some dry food, otherwise they will be hungry. No. Lin Wen didn't expect that this small act made a certain clerk heave a sigh of relief. He thought that he was dazzled last night. Then there are people who are still working on the embankment in the middle of the night without turning on the lights? Just like a monster. But he turned a blind eye to the less than half of the earthwork. It is no longer surprising that Mayor Lin can move like a fly against such a large bag of earthwork. At the bragging conference before going to bed yesterday, someone boasted that he had seen a real master in the big house. The man lifted 1,000 jins, moved like lightning, flew over the eaves and walked over the walls, jumped 3 meters, and punched a cow across a mountain. More than 50 car bandits came to loot. He rushed into the enemy line alone, flew up and down, rushed from left to right, and beat more than 50 heavily armed men to pieces. Everyone suddenly believed it, and they were not surprised when they came back the next day. Many people still feel that it is honorable, and after a few years, they have another bragging capital. Have you met our Mayor Lin? Back then, he was flying up and down the embankment by himself, rushing from left to right, and he was not afraid of 5 million tons of river water rushing Indiana. He poured 10 million tons of earth with his backhand, and blocked the river water outside the embankment for half a step. Don't cross the thunder pool, don't worry about whether it's true or not, I'll ask you if you're afraid. The work went smoother than expected. With the restoration of the levee, Lin Wen can get at least 20 good relationships every day, and at most 31 good relationships at one time. The only problem is that the primordial spirit is depleted faster than the recovery speed. Every day, it consumes 15% of the thunder, but only recovers 810% after a sleep. The effect of resting for a whole day is very poor, after sleeping more than 12 times. After an hour, not only is it difficult to fall asleep, but the recovery of the primordial spirit is also pitifully small. Lin Wen even used sleeping pills and forced sleep for 24 hours, but only recovered 13%. It seems that the human spirit cannot be simply compared to a bucket. The mathematical calculation method of the crazy swimming pool administrator is not applicable. To calculate accurately, calculus or partial differential equations are required. So Lin Wen simply changed his method and went back to the town to do chores on the day he took a break. Anyway, he was idle, and he slept for 12 hours. No matter how small the mosquito's legs are, it is still meat. The Chenpai village embankment has a total length of 261 meters. Lin Wen completed the repair work of the entire embankment in just 15 days. This is the result of Lin Wen taking 2 days off. The entire levee has contributed a total of 296 points of good fortune to Lin Wen. In addition to what he obtained before, he now has a total of 305 points of good fortune, which is enough for 6 reincarnations of good fortune. Unfortunately, the effects cannot be superimposed. During this period, Lin Wen also had 2 important achievements. The first is to discover that you can also use good luck to cast spells, which is the only way to use good luck in this physical world. There are not many restrictions on using good luck to cast spells. Many grey and black spells can be released, and there are even some spells in the primordial spirit period. However, the consumption is very high. The lowest consumption spell in the primordial spirit stage requires 900 points of good fortune, and the Kyrphaning spell power of 9 bulls and 2 tigers, which only consumes 15% of the primordial spirit power, requires 20 points of good fortune to cast. Point. Obviously, this is an unconventional and huge loss of use method. Unless the spell cast can directly obtain good fortune that exceeds the consumption, or face the crisis of a huge loss of luck and luck, Lin Wen will never use it. In addition, not all spells can be cast with good karma, except for some grey and black spells, and spells that are incomplete and without names will not work. The second harvest is that I discovered 2 special spells, neither of which has a realm marked, nor even a consumption. Qingming Mighty Make Your Own Secrets Chaotic. Asked in the Sky Seek the answer to all things in the universe. These are 2 very useful spells. The first one can be used to cover up and conceal one's own secrets after passing through. It is basically standard for future bosses. The second one is obviously also very useful, but I don't have time to study how to use Lin Wen. However, not everything was smooth sailing. After the good fate exceeded 50 points, Lin Wen had an inexplicable impulse in his heart, a strong urge to immediately use the good fate reincarnation, tempting him to let him give up the trivial matters of the mortal world and enter the world of immortality directly. Even if it is not perfect, it's a good start, as long as you can cultivate immortals. This feeling is like cooking oil on fire, no matter how you suppress it, it is useless. Only once, Lin Wen suddenly had a whimsy. Dao ancestors and immortal kings in the world of immortal cultivation can usually calculate the secrets. They know 3,000 years before and 500 years later. Now that no one helps him cover up the secrets, they must have calculated that there will be a jade tree in the future, a man of unrestrained elegance, a majestic spirit, indomitable, jade-like orchid. 1,000 miles in a day, often shocking people's attention, subverting the common sense of cultivating immortals, no matter how strong the subordinate's scent will eventually be overturned by the Jedi, and finally marked as a peerless figure who slays the gods and destroys the ancestors. Since it is calculated that there will be such a catastrophe in the future, they will definitely not be willing to kill them, but no matter how they calculate, they can't calculate the root of this person. After all, the two universes are separated, and the way of heaven is different. However, after all, they have already become immortals and ancestors, and they have great magical powers. They must have come up with some means. Even if they can't directly attack him, they can only affect his state of mind and disrupt his practice. Obviously, this inexplicable impulse to reincarnate is their means of disrupting their practice. After complete reasoning, Lin Wen has a keen insight into the truth of the incident. Poison. It's so poisonous. If I accidentally turned around, wouldn't it be a huge loss of luck and luck? There is no chance in luck, and when things go wrong in the practice of fighting for treasures, the growth will be greatly delayed, and maybe it will fall in the middle of it. It is good. I have written down this account, and I will find out who it is in the future. Don't worry about your wife, Taoist companion. After realizing this, Lin Wen's mood stabilized again. In the way of cultivating immortals, it means that his inner demons have been eliminated, his mind is harmonious, and distracting thoughts have been eliminated from his mind, and there will be no more wavering. Work. You want the labor and capital to be less fortunate, so that they will be killed by you in the future, and the labor and capital will not be in a hurry. After the labor and management have finished the work here, saved enough good karma, and achieved a perfect reincarnation, I will come to you to settle the account. At that time, I will be able to smoke you all by chance. At this time, the repair of the levee has basically been completed. What should be filled is filled, and what should be reinforced has been reinforced, but it does not mean that there is nothing to do. It is also possible to further thicken and strengthen the levee, or build a sub-levee. This is much less good than repairing the embankment. There are about 56 o'clock a day, but it is also much higher than usual. Lin Wen worked here for another 10 days. During this period, it was raining. Although Lin Wen was not affected, the 10 hard laborers complained a lot. Anyone who has done work knows how painful it is to dig in the rain, and the wet soil is heavy and heavy. Sticky, packing one bag is more tiring than usual packing 2 bags. The road also became muddy, and the tricycles that were transported got stuck in the mud puddles several times and couldn't get up. They had to rely on Mayor Lin to come over to help them out. Therefore, Lin Wen simply rested for a few days, just to accumulate a little more primordial energy so that he can use it when the flood comes, and he should be able to get a little more good luck. Soon, the flood season came. On this day, there was a red alert from the Imperial Hydrographic Bureau on the radio, and at the same time, the county's full-strength flood control notice also arrived. In the distance that Lin Wen can't see, the upper reaches of the Tianjiang River, Yunzhou and Lingzhou have had torrential rains for 66 consecutive days. The governor's office of the 2 states has organized more than 120,000 people to patrol the embankment day and night. The main water systems such as Yunshui, Linghe, and Yajiang have all skyrocketed, and the Yanshuo River has even exceeded the highest water level in history by 12 meters, which is all blocked by the rush to build the dike. The largest lake in the empire, Fanlong Lake, is rushing into the Tianjiang River at an unprecedented speed of 66,000 cubic meters per second, and the water level of the Tianjiang River is rising rapidly with an irreversible trend. The headquarters of the empire mobilized more than 200,000 coolies to help Zhongzhou, Mingzhou and Tianzhou in the night to guard against skyrocketing and flooding in the lower reaches of the Tianjiang River, the Dalongjiang River, the main river of the empire. The flood is coming. East Kinzhou, Chongshan County, the county magistrate's office. Zhao Anping is reading the work reports of various places, and at the same time listening to the work reports of the director of the county government office. From what I have seen and heard, the situation in Chongshan County is very good. With the joint efforts of the officials and the people, the embankment is intact, the river bank is infallible, the flood control agencies in various regions are in full swing, and all the work is in place, just waiting for the arrival of the flood peak. Zhao Anping is an old official. He has been in Chongshan County for 10 years. If 10% of what the people under him say is true, he is no longer in this position, and he does not need to spend so much thought. It took so many resources to run his new personnel program. After waiting for a long time, the director of the county government office hasn't finished talking nonsense. Zhao Anping doesn't want to waste any more time. This time the personnel plan is very important, and no mistakes are allowed. Director Li, is the flood control warehouse in Huai Town full? Director Li was stunned for a moment, thinking that this is out of order, and replied, "It's full, all the supplies are ready, register." "What about the warehousing record and the warehouse manager's signature?" Sweat seeped out from Director Li's head. I forgot to bring this. Is the National Guard Joint Defense organized?" "Of course, we played well." "Who is the captain of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd detachments?" "I'll review the induction report." This. "What about the coastal defense plan?" "County Chief Zhao, why don't I go back and prepare?" "Go." Zhao Anping nodded. Director Li, whose bald scoop was covered in oil and sweat, went out. "Xiaozhang." County Chief Zhao said, "Go supervise him, and make sure he finishes it without compromise." Secretary Xiaozhang took the order and left. "Hu Ping, has the reinforcement of the Dongdao embankment been completed?" Zhao County continued to ask. "It's done." Hu Ping replied. "What about the Nanan embankment and the Yingjia village embankment?" "It's all finished." "Is the quality reliable?" "Reliable, qualified by imperial standards." "Have the emergency flood control materials and personnel been arranged?" "It's all ready." Zhao Anping thought for a while and said, "Not enough, increase the amount by 50% of the original plan." "But, Commander Zhao, we don't have enough funds." Zhao Anping said lightly, "Go and get it from my vault." "Yes." "Have the embankment of Huan village, the embankment of Ximen village, and the embankment of Apple village been prepared for flood control?" "Governor, we have only taken some basic defense measures at these secondary locations." "Phil. The county magistrate, money, personnel, and supplies are not enough. Go to my vault to get it. Buy the supplies, and hire the personnel." "Yes." "Liao Jian, report to me about your recent work." A day passed in a flash, and Zhao Anping, who had arranged all the work to be foolproof, finally breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Work hard, all of you are my confidants. As long as we don't go out on business this time, we can enjoy happiness." Amid the praise, Zhao Anping added, "The 3 main embankments must not be in trouble, especially the east embankment. The poor output value of Chongshan County is behind them. It's best not to have an accident with the 3-pass embankment, so as not to be made excuses. The other dams are just as they are. You can pay attention to them when you have time. This time the flood warning level is very high. Even if it falls, we will not be blamed." "Oh, yes." Zhao Anping patted his head and asked, "What happened to the embankment of Chenpai village?" "There is also a town, 3 townships, and 18 villages behind it." "Do not know. I didn't hear the news." Lin Wen doesn't know where to go to play, and he has never been in Changle town. Seeing that Zhao Anping's face turned dark, Liao Jian, the county chief's brother-in-law, advised, "Don't worry. It's okay to break the embankment twice in 5 years, and it's okay to pour it again." "Relation. You shut up." Seeing that the county magistrate was angry, Liao Xian shrank his neck and hid behind the crowd. After a while, Zhao Anping sighed, "Forget it, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, let him go." At night, the water level of the Tianjiang River has risen by 180 centimeters, and the waves splashed by the river water can already hit the embankment, and the torrential rains upstream and downstream are still unstoppable, which has the potential to drown the world. Lin Wen learned from the radio that the first flood peak was coming soon. Looking at the river surface, I used to occasionally see boats transporting stones, but now there is nothing on the river surface. The turbid river water and extremely low dark clouds are connected together, and the pouring rainstorm is like adding fuel to the fire, making the river water even more turbulent. Lin Wen inspected himself. He was in good condition and full of energy. All the tools were tied to him and would not be lost. The various flood control materials accumulated over the past few days were piled up on the embankment and under the embankment. The primordial spirit also recovered to 60%. Qi key spells are always on call. Very good. Lin Wen clenched his fists. When the flood peak arrives, he will stand on this levee and fight the mighty force of nature to life and death, not retreating half a step. Of course, with his current strength, he is definitely invincible, and the final outcome is to die due to rescue, and at the same time become a star of savior and a responsible person, and he will be reincarnated with more than 360 points of good fortune. This opening is absolutely explosive. Although he can still accumulate more good karma, the physical world is so difficult, and it is better to pass it sooner, so as not to get dusty. Moreover, there are not many opportunities to be a savior and a responsible person at the same time. Once you miss this village and find another store, you will not know the year of the monkey and the month of the horse. May never be found again. Therefore, this opportunity must be seized now. Lin Wen sneered. Whoever framed me, is your wife ready? At 3:03 in the morning, Lin Wen woke up from his nap and found that the water had come up, and his hands and backs were all covered with water. The embankment of Chenpai village is connected to Qingfeng mountain and the hills below it. In order to avoid the rain, Lin Wen rested in a small hole in Qingfeng mountain. Although the entrance of the cave is a little lower than the embankment, it should also be far above the water. Lin Wen turned on the lamp on the miner's hat, dripped with water, and walked out of the cave. In the darkness, it rained heavily, and the river was surging, and the world seemed to be submerged by water. The surface of the river rose by at least 150 centimeters, and the water flowed with big waves, which roared. In just this moment of effort, the water has already submerged his ankles. Lin Wen knew that Hong Feng had arrived, so he pinned the radio to his chest, adjusted the channel, turned on the sound source, and a shout came immediately. Jiangxin County! Jiangxin County! Please note that the first flood peak passes through. The maximum flow is 175,100 cubic meters per second, and the duration is at least 13 hours. The second flood peak will arrive in 18 hours. Without any hesitation, Lin Wen immediately used the power of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. The power of bull and tiger runs through the whole body. Clear without eyes, the world is clear and bright, and every detail is visible. Lin Wen's eyes were fixed, he jumped over a distance of more than 5 meters, and landed firmly on the dam. This is the result of more than 20 days of training. If he had been in the past, he would definitely have flown to the river. Looking at it, he found that several dark holes that had been blocked started to loosen. Lin Wen untied the shovel wrapped around his waist, went up and took a shot, flipped over the materials piled on the embankment, picked up an anchoring pile made of dozens of steel bars, mustered all his strength, and shouted loudly. And insert it all the way. This method of hard anchoring stakes is seen by others. As long as the eyeballs will fall off, all the brick houses must be looking for the eyeballs all over the floor and spraying frantically. It is unscientific and unreasonable. But this is a no-brainer. Although Lin Wen is extremely powerful, he has to stop when he gets into the water. If he can't use his strength in the water, no matter how strong he is, it's useless, not to mention that the river is so turbulent, no matter how good the water is. It can only be hard plugged on the ground. Lin Wen put the shovel back on his waist with his backhand, and untied a large hammer from his waist, hitting the anchoring pile with a hammer, causing the steel bars to bend and the pile to sway, causing the anchoring pile to sink by 2 points. After hitting more than a dozen hammers in a row, Lin Wenke hung back the hammer, carried the sandbag and still put it on the anchoring pile. Sandbags are standard flood control materials. They were found in the town warehouse by Lin Wen when he returned to the town. But it happened to be cheaper for Lin Wen. He arranged for 10 hard workers to transport them for 3 days, and then spent half a day fighting them all. Now, half of the embankment is made of earthwork woven bags, the other half is sandbags, and there are some flood control materials under the embankment. In general, the materials are basically enough, and it depends on the final result. After dealing with the dangerous situation here, Lin Wen continued to patrol the embankment under the heavy rain and splashing waves. Relying on the vision of eyeless and bright, he could always find the hidden dangers that were extremely difficult to detect at the first time, and eliminated them at will. However, because the quality of the levee itself was not good enough, after a few hours, small pipe surges, collapses and infiltration began to appear in many places on the levee. Lin Wen put out fires everywhere, relying on his infinite strength to forcibly fight, right? Are you convinced that a 10-meter stick is inserted directly into it? Broken, right? Tons of sand and soil plus an anchor pile will work? Penetration? Eat my powerful King Kong legs. This battle continued until dawn, even Lin Wen felt exhausted. Fortunately, the first time Hong Feng passed through safely. Lin Wen took a break and ate something to fill his stomach. A few hours later, it gets dark again and a second flood peak arrives, this time an even bigger one that will last for more than 36 hours. The torrential rain didn't stop. Instead, it got heavier and heavier. The radio said that the rainfall had exceeded 600 millimeters, and it had turned into a super heavy rainstorm. Obviously, the real catastrophe begins now. Lin Wen was full of energy, ready to meet the last test in this world. At the same time, in Yingjia village, 15 kilometers away from Lin Wen, even in a raincoat and an umbrella, Zhao Anping couldn't stop the cold feeling creeping up his back. In front of him, in the pitch-black night, a long string of lights snaked into a dragon, and countless sandbags, earthwork, stone cages, and even cotton-padded quilts were passed through the crowd. Before the 7-meter break, throw it down again. The rescue work has lasted for 3 hours, and the breach has not been completely blocked. The river is rushing out of any crevice. The second wave of flood peaks has arrived, and the crisis has become countless times bigger in an instant. But now there is no way to block it. And if it wasn't for the timely discovery, when the collapse first appeared, County Chief Zhao decisively ordered the only heavy truck loaded with sand and soil to back up and block it, then the embankment would have been broken by now. Yingjia Village Embankment is one of the 3 main embankments in Chongshan County. Once the embankment is broken, the consequences will be disastrous. The slogans on the embankment came one after another, and the voices of 8,000 people were still unable to suppress the sound of wind and rain and the roar of the river. Commander Zhao! Commander Zhao! A figure rushed over in a panic, crying, "The west side has been flooded. A dozen dikes have collapsed." The county magistrate Zhao said sharply, "Has the emergency evacuation notice been issued?" I made it, but..." "Then what nonsense, hurry up and report to ask for rescue. Broadcast. Organize rescue. Hurry up." County Chief Zhao's thoughts turned sharply. The upstream area is vast and sparsely populated, the floodwaters travel slowly, and there are many mountains and mountains. There are high places where you can avoid danger. There must be time for emergency evacuation. The key is here. Just as he was thinking, there was a sudden exclamation from the embankment. Zhao Anping suddenly raised his head, and saw that a strong pipe suddenly appeared in the middle of the embankment. Supervisor Liao Jian shouted, "Block it! Go to block it! Go!" County Chief Zhao only felt an evil fire rushing to his head, picked up the loudspeaker, and shouted, "I will block your horse's family! Run! The embankment is about to fall! Run! Run!" Crowds of people poured down from the embankment, and the shouts were continuous, and the crowd under the embankment ran back like crazy. County Chief Zhao only felt the blood vessels in his forehead throbbing wildly, and shouted, "Hu Ping! Hu Ping! Hurry up, organize people quickly, and send an emergency notice to avoid danger. All the villages behind can't be saved. Tell the people inside to run away, and don't do anything. Take it, run downstream. The upstream is already flooded, so you can only run downstream." Despair and anger did not interrupt Zhao Anping's calm thoughts. At least the east embankment is fine, and the area around Quanzi village should be safe. I'll take someone to evacuate. It is especially difficult to organize people in the dark and torrential rain. Amidst all kinds of loud cries and wind and rain, there was only a loud bang. The levee of Yingjia village collapsed, and the flood tore a huge 30-meter-long rift. Pounced towards Yingjia village. Zhao Anping couldn't care about anything else, he ran wildly with the crowd, and the torrential rain hit his face, as if pouring into his heart. I don't know how long I ran, but I didn't stop until I didn't hear the roar of the flood. I found a safe high ground. I don't know who brought a high-power searchlight, which happened to be a lighthouse. While holding the searchlight toward the sky, Zhao Anping directed the staff to gather the crowd, and thought with a wry smile, "Why do I start to gather the defeated generals of the army after a defeated battle in ancient times?" Glancing at the surroundings, there are people drenched in torrential rain, panic-stricken and dejected. It really looks like it. Well, the enemy should have taken advantage of the rainstorm and the night to make a surprise attack, and at the same time used a water attack to defeat the Chongshan army led by Zhao Anping. After enjoying the hardships, Zhao Anping quickly cheered up. Seeing that more and more people gathered, he raised his horn and shouted, "This place is very safe, everyone is alive, this flood is rare in the world, and the empire will definitely help everyone. Rebuild home." This sentence alone made the crowd calm down a lot. Zhao Anping wanted to take the opportunity to say something else, but another group of people came running from the north, and one of the leaders saw Zhao Anping and cried, "Chief Zhao! The east embankment has collapsed. Tens of thousands of people have been devastated." Zhao Anping's head buzzed, grabbed him and said sharply, "What did you say?" The man's face was full of rain and tears, and he cried, "The water is too big. The east embankment can't stand it. I saw that the momentum was not good, so I let everyone run away. The embankment collapsed after walking for a few minutes. Come out, I cried again. Zhao Anping only felt a cold air pouring from the top of his head to the bottom. He instantly realized that if both the Yingjiakan embankment and the Dongdao embankment collapsed, it would not be safe here, and he had to run down again. Raising the horn, he shouted with all his strength, "The main embankment has collapsed. The flood is coming. It's not safe here, we have to run." In an instant, the cries rang out again, and Zhao Anping asked 3 people to carry the searchlights and then walked downstream. The crowd was forced to move. After 30 minutes of walking, I heard the sound of water roaring behind, and someone shouted, "The water is coming. Run! Run!" The crowd started running, and after running for an unknown amount of time in the dark, they finally could not hear the sound of water. Fortunately, there were always searchlights to guide them this time, and not many people were left behind. Zhao Anping once again found a place to settle down temporarily and asked, "Where is this?" The people around looked at each other in dismay. After a long time, someone tentatively replied, "It seems that we are near Nihujiao village." It's Nihujiao village. I've kept cattle here. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Someone affirmed his words. Zhao Anping calculated, that should be safe, there is no way the flood will flood here. No. Zhao Anping suddenly jumped up. Isn't there Chenpai village next to Nihujiao village? The faces of the people around turned pale, and they immediately realized that they were facing the embankment of Chenpai village. Several people have already started to run out. No, no, no. Zhao Anping immediately denied his previous thoughts. The embankment of Chenpai village is going to collapse early. It makes no sense that the embankment of the East Road has collapsed, and the embankment of Chenpai village will not collapse. Yes. The people thought. It is about to collapse early, and the Dongdao embankment has spent so much manpower and material resources that it has not survived the second round. What is Chenpai village? Does it fall twice in 5 years? But, look around here, does it look like a flood is passing by? It's useless just to think about it. Zhao Anping said, let's take a look and see. The embankment of Chenpai village is not far away, and there are only a few miles. But Xiaozhang was trembling all over, his legs and feet trembled, and the terrifying scene when the embankment collapsed made him greatly frightened. Why don't we just transfer? Transfer. Zhao Anping glanced around. Tens of thousands of people fell to the ground, exhausted. Many people were injured, crying endlessly, and he didn't know how many people ran away halfway. Can you see if you can still go? But, what's the use of seeing it? Zhao Anping still had the authority as the county magistrate. He directly chose 10 people to go with him. If there is an emergency on the embankment, I can do me a favor. Let's go. Zhao Anping said, but he was thinking, is that you? Lin Wen. The wind and rain brought lightning. Zhao Anping and his party stepped on the mud and struggled to reach the Chenpai village embankment not far away. There was nothing to see in the pitch darkness all around, and the light from the flashlight would be engulfed by the darkness if it didn't reach far. Turn off the flashlight. Zhao Anping ordered. When the only light source is turned off, absolute darkness descends. After a few minutes, when everyone's eyes adjusted to the darkness, although they still couldn't reach their fingers, they could vaguely see some outlines. Not far away, the embankment of Chenpai village did not collapse, but no specific details could be seen. Come closer. Zhao Anping said. Everyone's face turned pale, and the roar of the river was deafening. When they came so close, if the embankment collapsed, they would not be able to run away. But the authority of the sheriff was still there, and everyone moved a few steps forward. At this moment, a huge lightning bolt slashed down from the sky and hit the river surface. The silver-white branches were bent arbitrarily, and the power of heaven and earth rolled in, blocking everyone's footsteps. When the electric light flashed across the world, Zhao Anping clearly saw a person running down the 15-meter-high embankment like a fly. Zhao Anping shouted, Lin Wen. The man immediately raised his head and looked over. The lightning flashed in a blink of an eye. He turned on the miner's lamp on his head, and the strong light immediately illuminated Zhao Anping and his party. It also illuminated his own face. That's right, it's him. The mayor of Chang'an Town, the only town-level official under the age of 30 in Chongshan County, the youngest 6th-level official in East Qin Prefecture in the past 30 years, and the official who jumped the most in the Empire's 1-2-year history. Lin Wen. Zhao Anping clenched his fists, not knowing what to say for a while. And Lin Wen looked very surprised. He shouted, Zhao County Chief. But he turned his head again immediately, and dragged out 2 steel cages filled with stones from the pile of supplies, which were not found on the embankment. Due to the problem of light, Zhao Anping did not see the size of the 2 steel gabions, and did not know that each of them weighed 800 kilograms. He didn't pay attention to this detail at all, and shouted, Lin Wen, what are you doing here? How's the levy? Lin Wen didn't turn his head back, he lifted the steel cage and left. I'm in the rescue, the levy is in danger, I don't know if I can save it. Zhao Anping shouted, how many people have been arranged for the rescue? Are there enough supplies? Lin Wen replied, as soon as one person is arranged, the supplies are enough. A person? Zhao Anping couldn't believe his ears, what the is a person? Isn't that just him? What's the use of being alone? The secretary next to Xiao Zhang's calf softened, and he said in a trembling voice, Chief. Let's go. It's definitely not going to be able to hold here. Yet. Another person echoed, Xiaolin is a hero. He guards the alone, which proves that the can no longer be preserved. He is doing his last duty. Yes, we have to fulfill our responsibilities, and we have to protect the people. Please go back and lead the people to evacuate the county chief. The torrential rain hit the raincoat and fell from his eyes like a stream. Zhao Anping looked at the rapidly dwindling light, watched the little spark climb the embankment at an unbelievable speed, and watched him run in the darkness like a pitch-black beast, struggling hard. Throw what is in your hand. Suddenly he said, I'm right here. The sheriff. I'm right here. Zhao Anping repeated, look at the embankment. If the embankment collapses, I will notify you, and you should hurry back and bring people to evacuate. After being silent for a while, Zhao Anping continued in an unquestionable tone, Xiao Zhang, you should go back now and tell them to prepare. But don't panic, make a good repair, restore your physical strength, maybe it will be fine. Hu Ping, the three of you have the walkie-talkies are arranged for me, and the information will be relayed back as soon as it arrives. The rest of the people stay with them, don't lose people. Go. In the darkness, Zhao Anping was soon left alone. He looked at the tiny light in the distance, it was swaying in the, it was so small, but it was like a star that never went out. Unlike the tragic and solemn imagined by Zhao Anping, Lin Wen fell into an unprecedented state of frenzy. He faced the might of thunder and thunder in the storm, as if he was fighting against the gods of heaven. It was his last line of defense. He is now guarding the embankment, isn't that the prelude to the impending explosion at the last minute? Lin Wen's whole body was boiling with enthusiasm, and the fatigue of continuous fighting had long since vanished. The burden brought by the two extremely short intervals of power of 9 bulls and 2 tigers and brightness without eyes seemed to be non-existent. He kept putting sandbags into a 2-meter-wide breach, and the breach was quickly blocked due to the perfect jamming of the 2 steel gabions. Lin Wen jumped up and stepped on his feet firmly, turned his head and ran to another place to break. At this time, a thunderstorm came, and lightning frequently fell from the sky. The roaring thunder rolled in, and it didn't stop for half a second. The universe flickered frequently like a broken flash camera. In this terrifying scene, the living creatures shivered, but Lin Wen raised his head to the sky and laughed loudly. Countless stone and earthwork sandbags were thrown into the collapse, and the danger was calmed down in an instant. In this way, the levee was always crumbling, but it never fell, and there was no strong pipe like the levee of Yingjia village. After an unknown period of time, Lin Wen suddenly woke up from the frenzy. The storm was still there, but I don't know when, the water level on the river surface actually dropped. Hong Feng retreated? No, the radio clearly stated that the second flood lasted for 36 hours. How many hours was that? Haven't been here for a day? Lin Wen suddenly panicked, right? Hong Feng is so powerful, I can't die, right? Can a big wave take me away? He kind of wanted to deliberately rush into a dangerous place to die, but in this case, he would have a subjective willingness to die, and he might become a suicidal person. No, don't worry. This is only temporary. Hong Feng is accumulating power. It seems that I am defending so well. Yuyuganshu www.yuyuganshu.com wants to make a big one. While I was in the emergency, a big wave came and washed me away. Perfect. So I must not take it lightly, cheating on purpose, and I must go all out to rescue the emergency, otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of time if I failed to meet the conditions? Even though he thought so, his heart was getting more and more uncertain, because the flood was rapidly falling back at a speed visible to the naked eye, and there were fewer and fewer dangers on the embankment. In the morning, when the sky was bright, the rain stopped. And the water level on the river surface is already lower than before the flood peak. Lin Wen's mood fell to the bottom. He wandered aimlessly on a levee where no hidden dangers could be found, as if he had lost his soul. At noon, the first ray of sunlight shot out from behind the dark clouds, freezing Lin Wen's heart into ice like a cold light of 273 degrees. The roar of vehicles and the sound of neat running came from the rear. Lin Wen looked back and saw the Imperial troops, tens of thousands of Imperial engineers, and hundreds of trucks large and small. And not far under the embankment, County Chief Zhao was talking with an Imperial officer. Seemingly aware of his gaze, County Chief Zhao and the Imperial officer turned their heads at the same time and waved to him. The Imperial officer even whistled and shouted, "Salute to the heroes of the Empire!" With a loud bang, tens of thousands of Imperial soldiers stood at attention at the same time, saluting in the direction of Lin Wen. "Salute to the heroes of the Empire!" The voices of the non-commissioned officers resounded throughout the world. Lin Wen's last glimmer of hope was also shattered. The spell time had come, and the exhaustion, sleepiness, and despair that flooded in like a tidal wave instantly knocked down his mental will. As soon as his eyes darkened, he fell backwards. "Quick! Go protect the heroes of the Empire!" This was the last sentence Lin Wen heard before he passed out. Lin Wen spent a week in Zihuchan No. 1 hospital. In fact, he woke up on the third day, but he couldn't face the opportunity of losing the perfect reincarnation as an immortal, so he stayed in the hospital bed for 4 more days. Fortunately, there are 3 nurses who take good care of him around the clock. Every day, he has a full-body massage and maintenance, which is said to prevent muscle atrophy and inactivation. So it's not a bad day. What troubled Lin Wen a little was that they made too many small gestures, often stroking around and snickering. "Wow, this feels so good, no matter how many times you touch it, you won't get tired of it. Look at these abdominal muscles, they are soft, strong, and elastic. They are much stronger than those hard dead muscles trained in the gym. This exaggerated pectoralis major, the chest is unexpectedly wide, it must be very safe to lean on it. These thighs are strong and stylish, with restrained strength and delicious fragrance. I am the envy of any girl. Wow, I touched the inner thigh. Stinky girl, you want to die. You are the most shameless." Only when the head nurse was rounding the room would they feel more secure, but it didn't last long. In Lin Wen's view, this is actually a test. When cultivating immortals, you will face all kinds of temptations. Once you can't control it, you will suffer from damage to your Taoism. When breaking through, there will be many hallucinations, and all kinds of big desires and temptations from the bottom of the heart will come flooding in. Once the distraction fails, it will be a small matter, and the foundation will be destroyed. So it's not a bad thing to exercise in advance now. Anyway, he is also focusing on rushing to the cause of death and researching spells. Really found a worthy cause of death for him. Die for love, become a person who is indissoluble in the world of the world, love the world and the moon, and love to stay in the snow and dream of leaving people. Comprehension +9, chance +3, luck +1, charm +3, get love root. If you lose your fate, your heart will be broken, and you will fall into the devil. This is the first time Lin Wen has seen the cause of death with a single bonus of more than 3. According to the information he obtained while studying another spell, the aptitude for immortal cultivation has 3 elements: 1. Root bone, 2. Spiritual consciousness, and 3. Perceptions. Roots govern life, spiritual consciousness governs soul, and understanding governs great wisdom. This is the most important fundamental qualification. Chance and luck are special attributes. Chance determines the process, and luck determines the upper limit. In the world of immortality, if you want to go high, luck is a must, and if you want to walk steadily and fast, chance is a must. Without luck, I still want to climb up, but in the end, I die and lose my wealth and treasures, which is what Lin Wen often said. In the world of immortality, if you want to survive without luck, you can only be mediocre, keep your head down, and be subservient to others. For Lin Wen, who aims to dominate the world of immortality and sweep the heavens, this is impossible to accept. Therefore, luck comes first, chance second, and qualifications third. In addition to these 5 items, the others are secondary aptitude attributes, such as charm, xingxing, qi sense, etc. It does not mean that it is useless, but that it is not particularly important. From this point of view, the cause of death for love is terribly high, and the only disadvantage is that the luck is slightly less. This is also its biggest flaw, so Lin Wen can only reluctantly use it as an alternative. Unless he can find a cause of death that can be realized together with it, he will still not be able to shake the star of salvation and the person who is responsible. Status. In addition, Lin Wen also found the usage of some spells and verified something. The 2 special and stateless spells Qingming Mighty and Questioning in the Sky were discovered at the beginning. Among them, Qingming Mighty Dang cannot be used. The reason is very simple: this world has no secrets, naturally chaos cannot arise. Ask Yu Tian is the wrong way to use it. Just like the literal meaning, you have to ask questions first, and then determine the consumption of the spell according to the difficulty of the question. The previous part about qualifications was the answer he obtained by using Ask Yu Tian. This part of the information was not in his memory, and he wasted a lot of time rushing. The information in memory should only include system aspects, not all cultivation issues. And if you use Question Yushan to ask questions about the system, the answers you get are all no. The information revealed here is very interesting. What's more interesting is that Ask Yu Tian can answer the questions of this world. Lin Wen showed a cold, noble, evil, charming, and maddening sneer. The answer to this question can only be known after I become a Taoist ancestor. There is also a similar spell, Immortal Guiding. The only difference between them is that Question Yushan only answers things that have existed objectively. The Immortal Guiding the Way is to answer subjective questions, such as how to do something to be successful. The Immortal Guiding the Way consumes a lot of money, and there are hundreds or thousands of good fates at every turn. If this is not the case, Lin Wen would like to ask now, how can we drive these 3 fairies away? During this time, they are getting more and more excessive. Wow, look at his face, it's angular, it's clearly a handsome guy. Really, I haven't found it before. You little bitches, obviously because you all slandered others before. It's as if you didn't slander others. That's right, not a little yet. After a while of fighting, someone sighed. It would be nice if this was my husband. One person sneered, Dream, you are already the mayor at a young age, and today the front page headline of the Empire's sacred newspaper is him, the subtitle of The Last Man on the Embankment, the star that never extincts in the long night. Look, do you deserve this kind of man? After a while, someone turned out the newspaper. Look at this photo, it's really amazing. Wow! Isn't it? Is there such a handsome man? I'm going to faint. This is really handsome, and the peerless hero Prince Charming in my dreams has appeared again. Look, this light, this silhouette, this composition, is absolutely amazing. Just as the night was about to pass, the dawn was not yet, and the sky seemed to be hazy. He stood alone on the embankment, facing the rolling flood. Isn't a heroic spirit born spontaneously, and the aura of 1,000 horses and horses that I'm going to come to my face? Look at this picture again. Above him, the dark clouds are rolling and the atmosphere is solemn. Under his feet, the embankment is silent and contains a crisis. In front of him, the splashing water proves that the river is turbulent and the enemy is near. Look at his figure again, standing still, facing the enemy directly, there is still a kind of high-spirited prelude to charging the horn. Under the construction of these multiple contrasts, does it make people fascinated and can't help it? He is the only one who faces such a heavy pressure from the world. Although the figure is small, it seems to stand upright. Does this feel very explosive? I bet this photo is definitely the Best Photography Gold Award this year, and it has crushed all the gold medals in the past 2 decades. Sister Lee, stop talking, my little heart can't take it anymore. Why do I suddenly feel a terrible sense of remorse and want to stab this knife down? Hey! Let go of the old lady, little hoof, you are doing a dangerous move, intending to murder the heroes of the Empire. Be careful to be taken away by the Imperial Internal Affairs and Security Bureau. There was another fight, and their voices suddenly became much quieter, but Lin Wen could still hear them clearly. This kind of top man, if he hadn't just been lying here with us, he wouldn't have been able to touch it. Yes, it is estimated that in the future, I will have a smooth career, and I will become a high-ranking official. I will be surrounded by a lot of goblins, and I will love you every night. Don't talk nonsense. This is an imperial hero, he will only have one wife in the future, and he will grow old together. You're stupid. Don't your heart hurt even more when you say that? Do you think you can become an official wife? So, he'd better be greedy for money and lust, surrounded by hundreds of beauties, maybe you still have some drama to kiss Fang Zi. Don't talk nonsense, little hooves, now is our last chance. If he wakes up, we won't be able to touch it again. It's better to touch everything we can touch now. No words, only a few saliva sounds. Imperial hero, it was the first time I saw a living creature, and it was me. SHH. A slight movement sounded, and in Lin Wen's mind, the appearance of 3 little nurses and sisters tiptoed close. Hey, isn't it a little bad for us to do this? An ultra-thin voice. Then you go out. A voice said unceremoniously, you can touch it in your dreams in the future. After a while of silence, Lin Wen felt that his bedding was gently lifted, and a few soft, boneless, slightly cold hands reached out. Different from before, the little hands did not linger on him, but all the way down, 2 little hands gently lifted the only shorts on his body, and 1 little hand pulled down. Lin Wen could only wake up immediately, yawned and stretched out his waist. The 3 little hands shrank back like lightning, and there was a thud, as if someone tripped on the chair and fell. Coincidentally, the 3 nurses and sisters all ran out, and Lin Wen could only see their slender backs and ears that seemed to be familiar. After a while, a shout came from the corridor, the hero of the Empire is awake. The hero wakes up. He's all right. The sound gradually faded away, and after a while, countless footsteps came, and the door was violently pushed open. Countless spears and cannons that were much stronger than the flood flooded in, and they slapped him violently. This flash frequency is much more intense than the thunderstorm moment. A microphone hits his mouth directly. Mayor Lin, do you have anything to say about the embankment? This action seemed to turn on a certain switch, and countless microphones came over. Mayor Lin, it is said that all your staff have run away, and you are unwilling to risk defending the embankment, right? Mayor Lin, the brick house said that high-power construction equipment should be used on the embankment, but as far as I know, there is no such equipment in the entire Chongshan County. How did you do it? Mayor Lin, the courage to support you in fighting on the embankment comes from the glory of the Empire, right? Mayor Linear. Mayor Linear. Wow 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 wow. Lin Wen felt that his energy-raising efforts were over in an instant.